Thank you. Yes, we are.
Good. So 7:03, we're called to order. And on the, are there any changes to the agenda? Let me pull that up. Oh, public comment is first, excuse me. And we don't have changes. Hearing none. Oh, thank you. There's our agenda. Public comment. And did anybody indicate they wanted to join us tonight from the public? You're muted.
Yeah, slow on the button there. I have not heard from anybody who said they were coming tonight other than PC members.
Okay. Then minutes, and the minutes were fairly long. Did folks have a chance to look at them? I made a few suggestions, and Kate had been in ahead of me, and there was one place where Kate, when we get to it, I'll show you. I took your comment and incorporated it there. Could you go back up just a little bit? Where we talked about how many stories, it was there a minute ago, where we talked about how many stories, where there's blue and red both in one sentence.
Are we there yet?
No.
Okay.
That's funny. I saw it.
There we go.
There it is. Where it says a limit of 3 stories was suggested, and you'll see crossed out what Kate originally said is I'd like to note that a limit of 3 stories was suggested, although I'm not sure if this is the proper place. And I wondered if we can say that and then add what I had said at the meeting too, which is that I've been thinking about 4 stories in the core area. And so I was trying to figure out what that would look like. And I made a Google album of area 4-story buildings that with commentary, like I like this, don't like that. And right there in the minutes, I just pasted the link that will let you see that. And you can add comments too. If anybody has a link, can do anything they want with it. You know, I'll put that in the chat. So I'm not sure which we want. I think we may have both opinions. And I can't seem to copy it.
I think leaving both is fine. I just wanted it noted.
Yeah, good for you. And I think it's certainly a topic we have to get back to. Actually, I know where it is. Hold on 1 second and I can, because I mentioned this last time, but I don't think I ever shared the link. Well, let me try one more time. There was also one just above that where you had put, could we elaborate? And I agree with that. And I don't know, because I wasn't sure what was the gist of what was said there.
Yeah, I just didn't understand.
Oops. It
Looks like
still
it
didn't
did.
copy it.
Mhm.
Oh, wait a minute. Control C. There we go. So in the chat is a link to that. And the reason I was doing it was really to try to myself and for other people see, I understood from comments what we didn't like and was thinking that we might need in the core to have density at 4 stories. And so I was trying to figure out what that could look like. And so that's was just sort of my own effort at that. The link doesn't work. Oh, okay.
I'm in it. Worked for me.
We'll figure it out. And Megan, I don't know if you are through with school yet, but and when you are, I'd be happy to go over them with you and have more discussion too. So bottom line on all that is we should go ahead and leave it with both things stated. Basically, I added a bullet. I took what you put, Kate, and made it its own bullet.
Yeah, it's good.
Okay. Melinda, can we scroll through? Is it you that's scrolling?
Yes.
And I don't think there was anything else that warrants discussion. So when we get to the end, we can go back. Oh, yes, that one thing right there. These are just minutes, so I don't want to try to have the discussion. But I think my point in talking about fewer vehicles was that I expected us to have fewer vehicles in order to meet the state's carbon goals. That's the direction that I see the pressure going. And so it wasn't more than a suggestion. It was more an observation. I don't know. I agree with you, Kate, that you don't want to say, I wasn't saying there will be, but I am expecting that to be the trend. So.
Yeah, and I just, what I did was just try and note that that's what that was. It was.
Okay.
Yeah. Issues here.
So go ahead and you can take out my comment that's in brackets. I put it in brackets because I wasn't trying to insert it into the minutes, Melinda. I was just wanting to talk. It's basically a note.
Okay.
And let's keep going all the way to the bottom. And then could we go back to the one that where Kate asked for more explanation? It's about a page earlier.
Yeah, close to the top.
Yeah.
There it is. The
Right
second.
there. Please elaborate. I think, is it possible that this is something that you said, Matt, that the consultant team was balancing what they got from the general input with what they got from the individual interviews or something?
Yes, I think that's,
So
I think that's,
so would that be accurate if we put in the front of it, the consultant team was, and then the rest of this?
yeah, I think just in considering what came out of work in progress, that it represented a balance. You know, it wasn't
Yes.
strictly a directive from the PC. It was, you know, a mixture of landowners, staff, stakeholder, other town staff, other citizen groups, et cetera. That's fine.
Thank you. You've got it, Melinda.
Something like that.
Yep. And so we can take out, please elaborate. And anything else that people would like to look at before we, I realize I'm out of order by doing this before we do a motion, but I think we'll get there just as fast. Is there anything else anybody would like to look at before we take a motion and vote on these?
That was everything for me.
Good.
Okay. So I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes of, what is it, May 4th. as amended.
So moved.
Okay, was that Shayla?
Yep.
Okay, and a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Kate. I don't see any discussion because we just did the discussion. So if you approve, raise your hand or say yes. Or aye. Okay, any opposed? Any abstaining?
Abstaining,
You're abstaining, Ron?
correct.
Oh, I
Okay.
was going to abstain too because I wasn't there but that means that it's not a quorum.
You're allowed to vote even if you're not there.
Right, I didn't have a chance to review the minutes either, so,
Okay.
but
Um,
I don't know, I guess it's a choice between tabling them for next time or
Ron, why were you abstaining, Ron?
It was confusing to me. It wasn't what I was expecting from leaving the meeting. And I thought we were going to generate some comments through memos in the interim time. And as I read this, I had issues with it and I set it aside.
Yes.
I would like to table it and have everybody look at it with an understanding of what are we doing going forward in this work in progress. Because I thought from leaving the meeting, I thought we were all going to submit comments of what we thought was wrong with the process or what we just went through. And
Yeah.
so the minutes here were confusing to go through the minutes and then transpose it and make comments in the other document that Emily sent.
So Ron, I agreed with you. I agree with you. I was a little confused, mostly with the other document. I didn't really know what was trying to get done with that. And this was a little bit also kind of different from what I was expecting, but as I read through it, I thought it worked. Just kind of a listing of what we spoke about. And so I was kind of just looking at this particular document as these are the things that were brought up during our discussion. But I do agree with you, especially about the other document.
Well, from what you're saying, I would agree with Kate. So I'll go ahead and vote to approve the minutes as written.
Okay. In that case, we are 1, 2, 3, 4 yes and 1 abstention. And that approves them. And I want to just second that to me, this is a record of the points that were made, even though some of them are in conflict or not necessarily what we want to do. In there is the statement that we're going to have a document that we could edit to summarize our input. And I just now thinking that maybe I missed something because that wasn't linked in our agenda this time. Did I miss that document?
I don't know that you missed it. I think Emily sent it out or sent a
Yeah,
link.
she
Is that
did.
right?
It's
Yeah.
in a separate email, Chapin,
Okay,
but it was not in the minutes.
so I'm going to
Or in the-
apologize.
yeah.
Yeah, in the agenda.
Well,
So I'm just going to apologize that I haven't looked at it.
I went into it earlier today and I don't think anybody looked at it because there wasn't much anything in there. I put some stuff in there. But
I had Kate and I had, I think, the same.
yeah.
I wasn't totally sure.
I put something in one document. I don't know where it is, but it
So
may need all be unraveled.
the document that I think Kate and I are talking about is it's a memo. It's titled PC Memo with Feedback on FBC Work in Progress. And it's a table, which I like the idea of a table with the items, but the items themselves were a little tricky for me to think about how to provide input on.
Yes,
Yeah.
how to respond and really even where they came from. I
Well,
didn't.
some of the items I filled out the first page. I think there were 2 example listings, and then I just started putting my comments in the first field of that table, and then took a couple of days to figure out how to start a second page. And we were.
But Ron,
overcome
I don't see your stuff in here.
that. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
we're talking about the same page. I'll
Yeah,
work on
I
it.
think we are, but maybe you downloaded it.
Okay, so I'm going to suggest that we continue that work and that we put in our minutes this time that we are assigning ourselves to go into that document. I can see it here. I have a feeling it's not a link because it's a .docx, so I think it's it may be our own copy.
No, Chapin, it is a link. Yeah.
It is a link.
She
Okay.
sent it like the minutes. Chapin, I think, yeah, I do think
Yeah.
I would like more time, but I also, I don't want to slow this down, but I do want to talk about, and it doesn't have to be today, the topics that we're all supposed to comment on. Because, for example, there's not the topic of how many stories or where to focus energy or sort of some of the areas of like disagreement, not, of
Yes.
discussion that I think are important to have. I don't know, Kate, if you had thoughts, but like that was sort of my vision was we would take the pieces where, we really wanted to provide them with feedback, even if it was mixed feedback. So like, some of our feedback,
Yes.
I'm not going to remember all of it perfectly, was very unanimous about like, this is a lot of dwelling units. We want to phase it and focus it, or anyway, I just think
Yes.
the topics need development.
Yeah, the idea of Emily's memo was that you could add topics to this.
Okay.
So the development of you could add a topic and put your comment in, and then others could add their comment in their table
Okay.
cell related to it. So I think, Chapin, you're right in terms of just assign yourselves this over the next 2 weeks.
Add rows.
Yeah, add rows, add things. I didn't see much in this last week when I was getting the agenda ready, so I assumed we were going to do something like this and say we needed another couple weeks. The consultant group has watched the meeting from last time and gone over a very high level summary of the conversation from the PC already as they're working on their work, but this will be useful to give to them as well.
I agree. We talked about them viewing our meeting because so much was said. And there were a couple of areas where we really did have agreement too.
Yeah. Okay. That makes more sense, Matt. Sorry, I did not.
Nope, that's fine. It's a
Okay.
it's
And
a little squeezed.
I see Kate's things in the document, but let's all add things in our column and then add rows if we need
Well,
to.
yeah, but Kate, like I feel like you have stuff to say in the rows, right? I mean, like.
Well, yeah, like I couldn't, like, I don't even know what, in general, the results are simply a bucket full of all, I don't even know where that came from. I don't, it was very, and I was like, I don't know how to respond to it. So I tried to put what I could, what I thought was getting said in those topics, but I guess if we can add, I almost think it'd be easier to just send separate thoughts or emails, or I don't know. I know it's easier for the staff to have it in one place.
Yeah, I think we liked the idea of trying to get you guys to assemble, like if you each have a comment about a particular subject area, trying to show it to the team all together. So if there was a range of opinions, they would sort of see it all at once. But I'll tell you, I mean, whatever works, we will put the consultants in touch with whatever input the PC has, however you want to do it. I can also chat with Emily a little bit tomorrow, see if we can format this in a way that's a little easier, or if we need to turn it into a survey. But if we do anything different with it, we'll do it tomorrow and I'll let you know.
Okay. And I apologize for not having done my homework on that. Um, did that cover what we want to talk about regarding minutes and all? Thank you. Notices from other jurisdictions, still none?
None right now.
Okay. Bylaw. And by the way, permits exemptions occurs twice and it's the same document. Is that just because it was, yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Yes, it's mostly to remind me to describe this reference to EPA Superfund site that the state has asked we consider putting in. And since we're cracking into Chapter 4 under the cannabis draft, it's a tag along to that, and I can explain that when we get to it.
Have folks had a chance to look at these drafts? What the changes are?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and I'll just say right up top, everything in there, Matt, made sense to me with one exception, and that was the hours of operation. I didn't think represented what we had said.
Okay, I may have miscopied it, Chapin. If we could, yeah, it should be, Melinda, in either of the zoning
It's in
districts.
two different, yeah, the two district sections.
Yeah, I had that point, Chapin, as well as the location. And I know we talked about this like ad nauseum, and now I'm like, it's been over such a long period of time, but did we completely drop the nothing near a school idea?
I wasn't seeing that in the most recent minutes, and I remember it being discussed last time, but I don't recall if there was consensus.
I thought we did based on which districts we narrowed it down to.
Right. I mean, once
we
you took Blair
dropped the
Park out,
We dropped the childcare, I think.
Yes, we intentionally dropped childcare. And then the only thing that would qualify as a school that was within so much distance was something on South Brownell Road. Is that right? The Bellwether School or something?
I seem to remember that there were no schools within 1,000
Yeah,
feet.
yeah, I thought that was the case.
That was my understanding when we took Blair Park out. The other two didn't have schools within the buffer. And I didn't know if it was 500 or 1,000 feet. I think it was 1,000 feet, but there were no schools in those the two zones that is agreed upon or mentioned in here.
I think so.
Okay, but I mean, that makes sense. It just seems like it's like what if a school went in? Now, I know if the school comes in second, then that's not, I guess, thing, but, and I understand it's probably unlikely for it to happen, but, I don't know. It seems like it's like a hole. I wouldn't want it near a school.
And, but not, you're okay with preschool and okay with Vermont Tech being not next to it, but across Route 2?
Yeah, I don't have an issue. I mean, I don't have an issue with Vermont Tech. The daycare center, I know we talked about, I would prefer it not to be in the same building or next door, you know, if you're talking about like, and I think we had mentioned that about making it not directly next door, but I don't remember again where we ended up with that, or that they weren't in there. I know. So there's Nadio's, or I don't know how to pronounce that, play school that's over near FedEx. Is that that would be in this area? No.
That's in the industrial district.
Okay.
The boundaries down at Berlin City to mixed use commercial where this would be proposed. So you're probably got to be close to 1,000 feet by then.
And then the other one, which is in Blair Park, that would also end up being further, but
And that's a preschool, right?
yeah.
Or-
Yeah, everything that's in Blair Park is a preschool or Vermont Tech, so that neither of those would buffer over into mixed use commercial.
I thought we had removed Blair Park.
You did.
We did, Ron. You're
So
right.
the question was, Blair Park is across the road from mixed use commercial for a little bit. So was there anything in Blair Park that would bleed over into that other district?
Or vice versa.
Right. So a school that's not in the same zoning district, but its buffer would affect it. And I don't think it would.
So are we okay leaving it be? I feel like we have squeezed it a lot too. I don't know why we aren't including the Taft Corners Commercial District, but I am accepting the will of the majority.
I heard a question about hours of operation, and I recall
Yes.
there was conversation about that. Was it to just leave it to the DRB, or was it to extend these boundaries?
No, we talked about 8 to 8.
Okay, I can
Is
fix
that
that.
right? Am I remembering correctly? And also, I think Saturday. That
Monday through
this is-
Saturday.
this matches a previous draft, or 9 to 9. I can't remember which of those two, but then it really was the evening time that I think Alex originally made the point that that's when somebody might, without having to leave their work, be able to go shopping.
Sure.
And so I would say Monday through Saturday as well.
All right, and I am,
Is liquor stores can be open on Sunday, right? Or,
Yes.
so why are we?
I don't have a problem with Sunday.
I don't either.
Okay.
gonna just take days of the week out of it.
Yeah.
Just
I think
leave
it's
it
just
at,
hours. We don't want it open at like midnight, but
Right.
all right, and have
9
you said,
to 9 is what they do in Massachusetts.
all right, so 9 to 9, 7 days a week.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna fix that language so it says, retail or medical.
Mhm.
I have,
Okay.
oh no, I did get it, medical cannabis or recreational.
Yeah.
Yes, sorry, I attributing more mistakes to myself than I've made.
Yep. And I
So
think
Okay.
it would be wise
Just
to
to
say
clear-
7 days a week and not just leave it hours. Yes, Melinda.
just a clarification on the hours. I heard before 8 to 8. Is it 9 to 9?
9 to 9.
9
Okay.
to 9.
I'm going based on nods. Does anybody object to 9 to 9?
My last question would be, do you want to allow the DRB to further restrict those hours? So this is currently
No.
written that the DRB can't give permission outside of 9 to 9, but they could decide to restrict it more than that. Or do you just want to make it by right and that's it?
I don't think it's necessary to put that on the DRB. So,
I
Is
can
there
think of
precedent?
Well, so the DRB would say, under what circumstances would you want us to limit it? What findings would be making? So this just says in consultation with planning, police, and fire. At fire, I assume because they provide emergency services and could, I guess you might get comment from either of those departments of this creates a problem because
I see.
I don't know what we're.
I didn't have a problem with when I saw that language there, but I would be okay if the language weren't there as well, since we are restricting this to these two mixed-use districts that don't have, at least at the moment, don't have residential. Well, they do. There's some residential in the Gateway North, isn't there?
Well, there is some across the road, but we said that doesn't
Yeah.
that doesn't break the buffering, or that the state highway does break the buffering. I think the DRB really likes specificity, and if they have something that they're adjusting in conditions, they like the bylaw to say exactly why they might adjust a condition one way or the other. So having staffed them through a lot of things, I think you could actually sit, if you take the DRB out of it and just say, if it's permitted between these hours, period. And then it just takes that question away.
I'm looking for nods or shaking heads.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean, that's fine with me.
Yeah, I'm fine either way.
That's my understanding.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Did, okay, and Kate, we answered your question. Were there, I realize, Matt, instead of asking you to walk through all of this, we have all read it apparently and are just giving you our feedback. Has anybody not given feedback that they have?
Well, I
There's
still
a
want
typo.
to.
Somewhere in the top, sorry.
That's okay.
Maybe it was, oh, see, it says the retail sale.
Sale. Got it. Just a fat finger on the keyboard for me. Yeah, I mean, so big picture, you're taking medical dispensary out of industrial west. You're allowing medical and retail, either or both in a combined operation, depending on how somebody does it. In either, it's allowed in mixed use commercial, it's allowed in Gateway North. The provisions here would be the same for both zoning districts. There's a little bit of clarification about it not being allowed in the Taft Corners district, because that's the one district that otherwise recites a North America Industry Classification Code that would allow it otherwise. And then the Chapter 4 amendment that's pertinent to this bylaw change is simply saying that this is something that requires a discretionary permit from the DRB. So it goes to a hearing. It can't be handled only administratively.
That made total sense to me, and I see nods. And do you want to quickly pull up the language for the plume of class 4
Sure.
Groundwater?
Yeah, so Melinda, this is at the very bottom of Chapter 4.
There you go.
So a little bit of context here. I think for the whole time I've been in Williston, and for a long time before, both Vermont EPA and state environmental protection officials have been dealing with a groundwater pollution plume that originated from a building on Commerce Street. Company called MyTech was dumping tetrachloroethylene, an industrial solvent, into a ground disposal septic system for many years. And that contaminant had been discovered as a gaseous or vapor form in people's basements along South Brownell Road and in the soil under Kirby Lane and over to Shunpike Road. So it is a designated Superfund site. It's the only Superfund site in Williston. And after a lengthy period of monitoring and deliberation over what to do about it, and really whether there would be any active mitigation like digging up contaminated soils or running contaminated groundwater through filtration system, the ultimate decision was made pretty much to have monitoring wells to pay attention to whether the contamination's moving anymore. It is attenuating over time, meaning getting better. So to determine the rate at which that is happening, and to adopt some protective measures related to any work that might go on that could bring people into contact with contaminated groundwater. And so part of that entails this request from the State Department of Environmental Protection related to what they call, under the A&R classification, Class 4 groundwater, which is groundwater you don't want to be in contact with. So this recommended language would identify that there is an area in Williston that has Class 4 groundwater. and that any development requiring excavation in this area would need to perform that work under a work plan consistent with the Vermont DEC investigation and remediation of contaminated property rules, or the rule, under the supervision of an environmental professional, and that we would ask under our bylaw that before we issue whatever permit for work we're issuing, that we see documentation that somebody's doing so. So it would put an item on our checklist if somebody was digging a pool or a foundation or a drainage ditch, say, are you working under the supervision of an environmental professional? Can you provide us with your DEC paperwork to show that you're doing that?
Megan?
Yeah, Matt, can I ask a question? Like what is the depth to which you would have to dig in order to hit this untouchable groundwater?
Well, once you touch the groundwater, which can happen, as little as 6 or 7 feet underground in some spots here, it is tending to move a little deeper than that and attenuating closer to the surface over time. Generally the recommendation would be that you wouldn't build a house in this area with a basement. You would build it with a slab. If you had an existing house, there's been mitigation undertaken with some of the existing homes on South Brownell Road to fill their basements and bring their utilities like their furnace and things up into a different level of the structure. And basically you fill the basement, you ventilate under the foundation just like you would for radon.
Radon, yeah.
And then you've brought the levels down to an acceptable level inside of the house. The really, really bad contamination that was in somebody's home from this was a house that had 2 sump pumps running in the basement at all times. They were basically running a mitigation well in their basement. I mean, they were just, aerating contaminated groundwater in the basement of their house. And that was another basement that was filled. So we have had, in the time I've been in Williston, 1 brand new house constructed in this area with a full basement prior to any of this order coming through. And at the time we inquired with the state and the federal EPA, what should we do? We have this permit on our desk. And they said, well, just advise them that it's there. A brand new basement with a nice solid foundation with gravel under it is probably not going to be problematic if it's all sealed. But this would just provide that additional guidance to say, hey, you need to go talk to the state and make sure that whatever you're doing happens under some additional guidance. Reading the rule for Class 4 groundwater from DEC, there's a lot of things about even managing contact between workers and that groundwater when they're working. So I think Class 4 is like everything contaminated. So, at some point it's like, covering skin, wearing respirators, all kinds of stuff. This comes up really infrequently for us, but I think it's, worthwhile to get in there.
Is there, I'm sorry, this is kind of a tangent, but is there a concern with groundwater infiltrating in a flood situation?
I suppose if we had a really extended period of high rain that raised the water table.
Right, which is entirely possible with climate change.
Yeah. I think in that perspective of in a climate change sort of way, it might be possible that you would see some of this, particularly there's a little wetland just behind Shunpike Road on the south side of Shunpike where there's an isolated higher concentration where the groundwater is a little closer to the surface because it's a wetland. But that's not been raised as a concern. And I guess, whatever time we have before we're experiencing catastrophic rain events is just more time that the whole thing will attenuate. So, concentrations are getting lower over time.
I think
Thanks for
also, Megan,
answering
it's
those.
one of those things that you don't want to be exposed to over long periods. So like if there was
Right.
an event, it wouldn't be good, but it wouldn't, like that sump pump situation sounds like the worst possible option.
Yeah. Could only be worse if you had the treadmill down in the basement at the same time,
Yeah.
Thank you for answering those questions.
Sure.
So are there any other questions on these changes for cannabis plus this thrown in? My guess is that we're ready actually to say this is ready for whatever staff wants to have it warned and have the hearings, and or do we send it to the select board first for them to review it before we have hearings?
What I'd propose doing, and what we said we'd do last time, is I would send this over to the select board with a quick summary and say that the PC is ready to send this to hearing if you are ready to hear it, but we'd like a preliminary conversation if not, so we don't be, you know,
Okay.
if the PC were asked to make a complete U-turn on any of this by the select board, let's find out about it now. So I think I will be able to get in front of the select board 2 weeks from now and then have an answer for you that night, and then be able to identify a hearing path for this.
That sounds good to me. And I'm guessing if all we're doing is giving it to the select board for a pass at it, that we don't need to vote on that?
No, just as long as what I'm hearing from folks is this is ready for them to look at. That's all I need. I'll write them a memo. I'll put it in your packet for 2 weeks from now, and then I'll be able to let you know what they're thinking.
Good. That's where we're at then. And am I right that we will take a vote when we decide to put it to the public for review?
Yep.
Okay.
Great.
Official map. And it's nice that you're here, Melinda. When at our last meeting, we had not, very few of us had played with what you sent out. That's right, you were at our last meeting too, weren't you? I think.
Mhm.
I've played with it more since, as you know. I feel like it's a wonderful tool and a little bit techie to use. And do you have any updates you want to share with us?
That I want to share or we want to share.
You change how comments are saved?
So I can show you some of the comments. Looks like, Chapin, I see your comments here. And I don't know, would it be helpful to kind of go through some of these?
Sure.
Or there were, I would say, I don't know, maybe about a dozen comments.
I was doing it as a test drive because I feel as though it would be nice to really spend more time with it. Many of us were not on the committee that worked on this.
Okay. Well, so I guess I need some direction as to what would be helpful.
Would it be, I'm just thinking like I went in and played with it, needless to say, because even being really overloaded with work stuff, it was like, ooh, a fun map. So, and there were two things that I was particularly sort of, I don't know, opinionated about. And so I don't know if it would be a better use of time for those of us who have kind of some opinions or like something, a kind of a pet thing that they'd like to share, you know, that would be one way for us to go about it. I don't know if Kate and Shayla and Ron have had a chance to go in and do any of these. And if you have kind of pet issues that you'd like to raise in this meeting. And I don't mean to derail anything. It's just a suggestion.
I played with it a bunch before our last meeting instead of doing the other homework and watching the presentation. Sort of similar to you, Megan. I don't actually have comments or thoughts, mainly because I still feel sort of new to all of the concepts of what we're doing here and how it is going to work. but I appreciated the video that you made. That yeah, appreciated the tutorial.
Yes. So Megan, do you want to give us yours overall comments first?
So the two things that I had, and I did see one of my comments briefly when Melinda was sharing that part. One was this, my comment was connector street with multifamily homes that look like old New England farmhouses. And that was specifically to connect Lansdowne Street to,
Okay.
Oh, to Lambert?
yes, to Lambert.
Yeah.
And that's town land at the moment. I know some residents in particular who would have a absolute hissy fit if we propose that, but this is the official map, right? So we get to put things out there. I think you would need, yeah. So right there, the blue, the light blue thing. Yep. Basically kind of in the spirit of connectivity, but also in trying to kind of densify the village a little bit. That space, it just, I know it's been proposed as a dog park, but I don't see that working out very well because partly because the residents are really, really opposed to it.
It's too close to houses.
Yeah, it is pretty close. And there's no parking right there. You'd have to always use, you'd have to walk way over from the community parking to Central School or poach the parking at the Federated Churches lot.
Yes. Or build a parking lot there at the end of Lambert Lane.
Yeah, something like that. And yeah. So, as much as I would love a dog park there, because it's like a 2-minute walk from my house, I was thinking like, what if we, yes, we have an interest, the whole county needs more housing. And what if there was, kind of a little connector street there? And I've been, I don't know, it's just sort of like a pet little project of mine where I think about, these old New England farmhouses with the big house and little house and little house and little house, and then the barn. And that style is really, it's very kind of locally appropriate. And it's actually really flexible housing. Like you could have, a 4-bedroom unit and a 2-bedroom unit and a studio apartment, which could also then change potentially as people, age out or whatever. I feel like we need more flexible housing stock. So that was just an idea. And I realized that that's awfully specific for an official map, but that was my little dream. And so I put that in there. And then the other one was actually based on something Kate said last time, which is the giant empty space at the corner of Old Stage and Mountain View, our beloved spot where the Citizens for whatever it was, responsible growth. Responsible, yeah. Got very active. And Kate had pointed out last time that it was kind of gridded with streets. And I wondered, since it's the official map and we're supposed to put things that, are our ideals, maybe we don't put that, make it conducive to development. Maybe we put in our wish list that would become, protected land in some way. And I don't know, what would it take to get there, but yeah, sort of near, I have no idea what Marty Keenel's family golf world is, but
that's the place being developed.
Oh, okay, right. I didn't know it had that name.
Oh, it's
Gulf.
right here.
Yeah, but
there.
farther east from that, yeah, is the, right, is
Yep.
that large area. And I was having trouble. That's why there's multiple pink dot things, because I couldn't, like, I kept hitting enter and it didn't show up. And then later it would show up. And that just seemed like an opportunity for us to say, okay, well, this would actually be a place that we would prefer not to have a bunch of houses on. I mean, that seems to be pretty clear from the community response that we got from Matt's April Fool's joke a year ago. And so I just kind of threw that out there because, you know, I feel like if the role of the official map is to have a bit of a wish list role, then, you know, then maybe we should be putting that down as some kind of protected open space, and we have to figure out how to make it happen. I don't know what Matt thinks about that.
So we had a little bit of conversation about this before, about whether that goes here or whether it goes on the to the Conservation Commission for the Environmental Reserve Fund list of potential sites, or whether it goes as an addendum to the town plan, like the, and I'm still not sure. I just wanted to, if someone can refresh our memory more, is where do we stand on that?
Melinda might have a little more about, I think my answer is it could go in any of those. So it could be identified as an area desirable to conserve for a town facility. In this case, maybe just as open space. If it goes on the official map that way and somebody were to choose to make it available for sale, or were to choose to develop it, the town would have some right to attempt to buy it. It's probably worth $5 or $6 million. I forget, Melinda, am I over exaggerating? Was it more like 4 when we talked about that?
You know, I have no idea based on the craziness that's happened with land values over the last year. I wouldn't.
Yeah,
I wouldn't venture
that was all something we did early last summer. So I think we were talking about like it was 40 or 45 years worth of ERF
yeah.
contributions to buy it at market value. But you're right, Megan, that it's a wish list. So I think that you could make that identification on the official map. I think at some point there would be a question to the select board of like, do you get it what it means to put that there? That you might be making it a priority. In terms of the gridded streets, I think that you could identify the land for conservation and leave the streets. It doesn't mean the town has to build them. But if you did have it come in for development because the town either couldn't or decided not to purchase it, you'd still be making that push for street connectivity with other neighborhoods. And then I think the part I said Melinda would probably have an answer about is, would we use ERF? Would the town need to come up with another funding source? Could it be identified in the town plan? The question Melinda brought to you specifically about parcels like this several months ago was, these are parcels that are in an area zoned for development, served by services that support development, and therefore maybe don't make quite as high a priority as some of the lands that are out in the ag rural district that could be conserved. So I think there was a question we kind of asked and never completely answered, which was, does the Planning Commission actually recommend identifying some of these lower scoring lands that are in areas planned for development as still areas that there's a desire to focus a conservation effort on, and then what's the trade-off? So are you going to focus on this instead of buying twice as many acres somewhere in the AR, if that's what it came down to? Melinda, let me know if I'm off base with any of that or what more you want to add.
No, I mean, that's just it. It's this parcel is relatively unconstrained, so it's going to be worth a lot more money than maybe a parcel out in the ARZD, out of the sewer service area. But yeah, so, but I do think the Conservation Commission has looked at some parcels in, that aren't in ARZD and looked at them as, yeah, these would be nice to have. So,
So if I could second Megan's original thing, to me, what's on the screen right now is perfect. You can see the Ellenbrook Elementary School and the town land around that. That was the old, was it Mahan Farm? When that was an exchange for Maple Tree Place, actually. And then in the upper right, you can see Catamount Forest. This block that is outlined in the pink dots is pretty much halfway in between, is a place where there's beautiful views, a place where we're hoping to have rec path somehow getting you from Taft Corners to Catamount at some point. And so it could be the halfway point for somebody who's not going all the way to Catamount. But for recreation, it could have some bike trails on it. It could be somewhere that, even if the grid streets were added with on-street parking, it could be somewhere that a fair or some sort of event could be held in the open with the nice views that are there. And so to me, this is different from conserving land for conservation for wildlife. To me, this is a prime piece to conserve for public use. Much like serving for a park. That's my thought.
I had another question, which is the other side of Mountain View Road, that is town land, right?
Yes.
And so then I was kind of thinking, well, to me, that's sort of lesser land in the sense of the views, because so like if there were houses on what's currently the town land, that probably wouldn't really interrupt the views at all, but it really would if there were houses on the south side of Mountain View.
Yes.
And so I don't know if there was any way to sort of like hold the town land as like a potential swap and, like, oh, you want to develop there? Well, actually we have this piece that would be even better. And, and so I don't know, I was just sort of thinking wildly about different sort of things that we have in our pocket now and could potentially trade for, for at least some of that.
You'd have to deal with the landowner who had that taken by the town for the water tower.
The one issue I have is more to the west, the Alliance Church property. There's a lot of people on this side of town and even across Essex Road, and we don't have access to these fabulous parks that you guys have over on the east side of town. And I've got people setting out along the street curbs on Day Lane because there's no space for the families who are living in affordable care. There's not a park that they can get to in a quick walk. So to me, it's that I agree, but we need to also look at getting park property towards the west side of Williston.
So Ron, in the work in progress that the consultant team showed on form-based code, they showed a 6-acre park within the Essex Alliance Church property. Would it make sense, and I guess asking the whole commission, to draw that in?
Yeah, and that 6 seems to be a rather small piece, especially if you look at the school property. If you look at the amount of acreage that's to the east of Allenbrook as opposed to the west, it needs to be a little more equitable distribution of park space that's walkable.
So
Melinda, could you to the west and north just a little bit? I
Gonna
feel
get
like we're
Rossi Mill
not
Park
quite
in there.
seeing. Oh, yeah, that, oh, okay. Yeah, there we go. So now we can see
Now, there
the,
not, just not be any space to put property there or to bring in a park.
well, in the form-based code conversation, I share Ron's perspective. I felt like their proposed use of that land was maybe a little unfortunate, like, you know, given that it is pretty open now, seems really ripe for, you know, for some serious green space, like maybe with some clustered dwelling units on one side or something like that. But like, it would be nice if there was more, a larger park than what they had planned.
And I objected to the fact that in stage 1, they had housing going in there, which pretty much then made it a housing area in stage 3 when they had it built out. To me, the farther regions, which is that piece of land, the Oak Hill and down in between near Walmart and Home Depot, those areas that are sort of the farther reaches of this zone, of the Taft Corner zone, should be built up last. Is my feeling. We need to build up the core, focus on the core becoming more livable, workable, walkable. And the other thing is the northeast quadrant is where 90% of the housing that's in the Taft Corner district is right now. And so adding more housing, it makes it that quarter is the housing quarter. And I would so much like to see housing come in where the yellow lines are on this map, where the new streets are going, to balance. And so I would just like to defer that the Alliance Church property. I'd like to defer it with, and I think we should identify there should be a park there. The only question is, 50 years from now, would some of it want to be used for something other than green space? But 20 years from now, I think it should still be green. That's my opinion.
The retail value of that property is probably going to make it impossible for the town. I don't know what we would have to do in order to get the funds to purchase that. But definitely, I know the community over here really doesn't like any development to occur, and that we feel like we've taken a hit and we have no public parks in the immediate area.
So we certainly should identify, and this gets really to the mytaftcorners.com discussion, we really should identify that as an area that we want open space with details to be worked out. Because in the end, in order to afford for the town to make it open space, it may have to sacrifice some of it to a developer in order to get permission to, or in order to be able to afford to make the rest a park. Is that, am I being too transactional?
Well, that's the thing. All you can do is map it. And then you've said that if you had the chance, you'd try to buy it. And then you got to have the money to buy it. So, you know, that's the trick here. Yep. Is, you know, and on the form-based code side, I've talked with the consultant lead, Jeff Farrell, a little bit as recently as last week about how to bring some focus to the Taft Corners area and consider trying to focus new development in particular areas within the core or in congruence with town investment in street infrastructure. Because if you just develop a little bit everywhere, it's a very long time before it becomes cohesive at all. So that idea is out there. And, you know, at the end of the day, we're running up against private ownership and some property rights issues, but there are ways to incentivize that focus. And yeah, you know, you can put it on the map. It's just if you get that right of first refusal, are you planning to be able to respond with the amount of money it would take to make that happen?
Well, and I kind of was asking a little bit about this a couple meetings ago, Matt, but Chapin, I don't think it's bad to be transactional in that manner. in this case, because it still mostly achieves the goal.
So we already have a path and a rec path identified for future through that piece of land, the blue and the black, yes? And what we would do is identify that there should be a park there, a community park of some kind, to be determined. And if it came up for development before we had any kind of way to fund doing something or enough demand to spend a lot of taxpayer money to develop a park there, then we would have to compromise. Yes? Could I give input on three things? If we could, looking back at the area where Megan was, actually, this isn't input, this is a question. I saw in the property transfers in the Observer that Northridge purchased 40 acres just north, it says, of Hart Circle, which means east of Northridge Development. And I'm assuming because our property boundaries are showing it's a block right to the right of that. Is that right? And do you know anything about that?
I believe that's actually just Northridge purchasing the Northridge land.
Oh, and they called it north of Hard Circle, even though it's really, okay.
Yeah, because they've been, the way these deals typically work, they're under agreement through, some certain stage of permitting. There's
Okay.
probably been a partial transaction already,
All right.
but, now they're about to, I don't know, they're gonna probably have the first house occupied sometime this
Yeah.
summer. So
Okay. So they had
I think
purchased an
that's-
option or something, yeah.
yeah, I mean that's you often just don't know what the interests are from following the property transfers until pretty late in the game.
Okay. And the reason I asked is just that what's happening to the golf course, and if they were expanding to the east, it did highlight the pressure that Megan's trying to anticipate on that corner of Old Stage Road and Mountain View. The next thing, I'd like to go back to the village where Lambert Lane, the idea of Lambert Lane connecting to the baseball lane.
Yeah.
Could we zoom in there a little bit? Are we going to see Megan's fuchsia line, dotted line? Yes. So I just wanted to say that that piece of land, I have been always imagining becoming community gardens with solar panels behind them on the north side. And but I'm fine with the idea of putting a road as a possibility there.
It's so hard to predict sometimes, Chapin.
I know, the town does own that. Oh, irony. So I think putting a road there is a really good idea. It is town land, so there's no permits needed, but it certainly will start discussion. Like Megan and I haven't talked about the two different thoughts we had about it, and I like hers as well as mine. So I like that idea.
We can do them both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's some interesting things about the way that land came into town ownership. It was Mr. Lambert conveyed it to the town, quote unquote, for education purposes. And there's actually a road layout over that land that sweeps out behind that last house on Lansdowne Street, pretty close to where the bike path goes. And the idea was that Lambert could be a through street all the way to the backside of Central School, and it was part of a grid of streets that could have happened in the village. In fact, with the bike path where it comes out across from the Federated Church being a full street rather than a bike path. And it's a little sticky and weird because, of course, now the school's not a town school. The school's a district school, but I believe the land was conveyed to the town, and the statement of education purposes was kind of vague. And then Bill Niquette, who redeveloped the Taft House with the 2 additional units, he was facing objections from the Lambert Lane subdivision when he did that, particularly related to driveway access on Lambert Lane. And before they had fully lodged those objections, he actually found Mr. Lambert down at a retirement home in Florida and bought Lambert Lane. And I believe there's still an irrevocable offer to the town that lives underneath that private road ownership. But it's a tangled web. Doesn't mean you can't put it on the map. Doesn't mean you can't say you'd like it to be a through street. Although it will make my life painful for a while if folks see that on the map.
Okay. Well,
I'd like
and
to make a motion.
I believe that John has since passed. I'm not positive, but I think he
I
has.
think you're right, Chapin.
He was furious that the town made him build that road to town road specifications. It meant taking down a whole lot of more trees and spending a whole lot of money to put in 3 houses. And he basically gave the town the land that's the community park for his cost on a per acre basis of when he picked up the estate sale of the Taft House. So there's a whole lot going on there, but one of the reasons that it was listed as a grid street back then was the Allenbrook School hadn't been built yet, and it was possibly that we were going to add on for more students, and we were going to need more access to the school for buses and so forth. Anyway, that's all history, but I think we should put it on there and let the discussions happen. And this is a living map that we can change if good arguments are made.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and also solar panels and gardens are very educational.
Chapin, I do
Yes,
have
Shayla.
actually, because I'm understanding now, this is a little bit more of like a wish list. So changing areas a little bit, down in the rural ag district, where I live, Oak Hill Road right now, it looks like that proposed idea for a bike path ends before Butternut Road. But after Old Creamery, and there's a lot of bikers on Oak Hill, and it's a fast road.
That's interesting. When we were talking about that with Taylor from CCRPC, that blue line was supposed to indicate where they needed to increase the shoulder so that it's safer for bikes around those curves and on that hill. Interesting.
Well,
Okay.
I rode my bike there today from Butternut heading south down to the other part of South Road, right?
Yeah.
By Isham, and there's no shoulder there.
No.
So,
No.
So, and it's really not safe.
It's
In
terrible.
fact, I always avoid that section between Butternut and, basically the other piece of South Road right by the highway, because that big dip
yes.
is so dangerous.
I was going to say there's no shoulder on any of it
Right.
to speak of, but when you are going through the dip and around that squiggle, there is also no sight line. And so the safety factor was primarily from the top of the hill up from your house, down through the squiggle and up past Sunset, all the way to just before Butternut. But I'm not saying it has to be any particular way. I'm saying I think what was put on there was that there, am I right, Matt? Were you at that meeting?
I'll have to check with Taylor. It might reflect that that's where the greatest area of need is to get additional right of way. But I think you could justify mapping Oak Hill, all the way to South Road or the town line and just say, make safe for bikes with, wide bike lane. I know that when the land on the southwest corner of Butternut and Oak Hill was conserved, the Bruce Farm, that part of the subdivision that happened with that, which allowed for one more house on Butternut Road, there was also a conveyance of a multi-use path or bike ped easement. I think 20 feet wide adjacent to the existing right of way of Oak Hill. Because I think if you go back to the town plan desired trails and paths map, there's something on there that extends all that way down. I know we got that. I know we got that out of Bruce Farm, and I'm sure there was a reason.
Yeah,
So
I would really like to see it, because it's not like so that people can, because people do bike that road all the
Yes.
time. It's a commuter
Sure.
road. It's a great exercise road, and people do it. And I drive that road every day, and it's terrifying when there's bikers because people go 65 miles an hour in their cars, and there's no shoulder.
Oh, and I take South Road to avoid it on a bike a lot, but the very first half mile of South Road is pretty scary to get to East Hill.
yeah,
Anyway,
Well,
so I would
Yeah,
really
totally
push for
with
that.
Shayla.
Because and it is
Sure.
an asset, I think it's a really cool asset of Williston to be able to bike down into Heinsberg and hit some of those other like good road biking roads south of us. So I just, that's a big one. And then I know this is not, the specific location is not defined, but along those lines, there's this pink desired path that hits Oak Hill right along Fieldstone Drive, or right by Fieldstone Drive. It comes out onto Oak Hill by Fieldstone Drive, and it just doesn't follow Fieldstone all the way out to the end of that road. And Matt, I would want to see Fieldstone Drive connect to South Road by a path.
Right about
I
right
see.
where your pointer is, yeah.
I was looking at my screen, not the screen.
Or just below that, is it?
Sorry. No. Oh, you can't see my pointer. It's already a pink line. Go down a little bit. Yeah,
there.
right there. So see how it's just, and maybe it's just not exact, but it doesn't follow that Fieldstone Drive.
oh, I see what you mean. Just have it follow.
And it doesn't even need to be this whole long pink thing. If it were just connecting Fieldstone to South Road there, that whole South Road and Beartown Lane community could walk from
To the Isham
their
Farm.
area to the Isham trails and to other trails. And it would not be a tough path to make, says the person who maybe occasionally trespasses there.
Melinda, does that, Melinda, reflect an existing easement that came out of the Fieldstone subdivision?
No, that's just the thick pink line represents the desired connections.
Okay,
Without any
that's why
specific route. Yeah.
It's deliberately vague, but
okay.
it does. I mean, I think the intent is to follow Fieldstone Drive.
Okay.
It's
Okay,
just,
we can,
it's not exact.
we could show it that way. I think the town got a trail easement out of Fieldstone back
That
in the
is-
90s.
It's up here, I believe.
Okay, that's that dotted, that,
Yeah.
yeah, okay, on that border.
Mhm.
All right.
Right. It would, yeah, that would
This
just
stuff-
connect that side of the community easily.
This stuff is great, and it's just what I'm hoping that we, and perhaps us coaching other people who have interest, can help add to this. Because they're ideas, good ideas.
Mhm.
And
And
then
I,
just while we're on that pink line, it looks like it stops at Oak Hill and then starts again at the back end of my property, actually. Wondering why it starts and stops there, since there are trails in Isham that it could follow. And then
Mhm.
Where do you live, Shayla?
I live, it's right across the street, Chapin from Fieldstone.
Okay,
My house is not shown on this map. But it's where that little pond to the north is.
Mhm.
So that It's actually a huge pond. A huge pond. to the
Yes.
north. Anyway, that could connect easily through those trails. And then there is also something that's not shown, which is there, I believe there is a trail easement along the back end of my property. So where that pink line connects
Mhm.
on the western side to the Bruce property, I believe we have a trail easement.
No, oh, yeah, I
There.
guess,
The subdivision.
we
Right there,
do,
yep.
don't we? That was across, Heinz's property. Across here,
Yep, you got it.
yeah.
Yeah, we could get that on there.
Just if in case you're thinking about, because then you would be connected to the north, the west, and the east. That could be kind of cool.
Mhm.
But these are great. And I'm hoping we can individually do more as we see the chance. Could we look at the comments that I put in, Melinda?
Sure.
They're both between Allenbrook and the fire station, between Allenbrook School and the fire station.
Right.
And I really was just trying out the tool, but I was putting what was in my mind at the moment, and I am becoming more excited about the thought of this. So the first part is that there was a trail. There's a trail in Southridge that's a black line there, a foot trail along the bottom of the current view. No, sorry. I was lost. Sorry about that. Yes, there's I don't see the trail. I see dotted line. Is that a existing trail?
So it's an easement. It's not a trail that the town owns right now.
Okay, so that trail does exist,
Mhm.
used by
Yeah.
Southridge residents on both sides there of Southridge Road. And then the little pink dots that I put to the west of that, going behind the fire station, connect to the Seth Circle Trail that you can see over off of Talcott Road. So I was just thinking we should connect those two with a trail, and that's town land that the pink dots are going through, plus the Cirque right of way. So
Yeah.
I was thinking that we should just keep that trail going as a primitive path. And then the other thing I put, and I put it twice, Melinda, we can delete the first one if you want, is the idea of I was working on trees where the beavers have been eating them near Talcott Road, and then realized there's trees behind the fire station. And there's about 18 acres there behind the fire station up to the hill, the Allenbrook.
Oops. Oh,
My comment
dear.
should be there somewhere.
sorry. Yeah,
The
so
last
it's,
two here, how about, let's delete one of them because I put it there twice because I didn't know whether it was saving or not.
this one here,
Um,
or these two are the same?
Let's delete the next to last one.
That
That
one.
one, yeah.
Okay, I'm not okay. Let me see.
I don't know, can we delete?
Where is it?
It's right where the words Williston Fire Station are. So I think it's
Right.
that dot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
I'll delete that. I don't want to waste your time with trying
That's
to
fine.
figure out how
That's
to do
fine.
that right now.
But what I realized, we talk about space that's not in the riparian, that's not too close to the nature corridors along Allenbrook, but which people can enjoy nature. And the Allenbrook community uses the knoll that's just to the south of the school. It's actually, as you look at the property lines, on the town property rather than the school managed property, right about where the word fire is, where it says Williston Fire Station. There's a knoll there that's used a lot by the students. And that whole area from there down to the brook, we use for nature stuff with Four Winds. And we could plant trees that were a variety of things, including sugar maples, so the kids in the future could learn about sugaring right there. And it's land that would connect to natural paths that we were just talking about. So it'd be very accessible. It's land that's already owned by the town. And so I started to get, and one thing that happened is the beavers have been eating the trees on Ellenbrook along there, but they are not eating sycamores that were planted behind the fire station. And so it just got me the idea that we could be planting more sycamores and then, and sugar maples up top, and then what in between to make a diversified forest that was enjoyable by the community in what now is pretty scrubby, mostly box elder and invasive plants, except where the riparian plantings are that are getting eaten by the beavers. So anyway, that's what I was trying to show there. It looks like I did it as a dot. Was that the right way to do it, Melinda?
Sure. Yeah, that works.
Okay. Thanks. I think we're to the end of our official time. Or do we go till 9? I can't remember. Because we have one more thing on the agenda. Oh no, the vision is just the vision map. Okay. So
Yeah.
Can we leave this that people will look at it and write around wherever you live? If you see things that would make sense, try adding it yourself and see if we can use this tool more.
I'm right, Chapin, that it is more, it's like a future wish list.
Yes. Yes, we're the planning
That's why I
commission.
hadn't added stuff. I was like, I want these things.
Well, and for those of us who are old, I can remember when Taft Corners was nothing but farms and one gas station. You know, it's like, if you think 50 years in the future, it may look a whole lot different than it does now. So if we don't put a placeholder, the chance is gone. Shall we go on to the idea map, vision map?
Yeah.
This yourself, Matt?
This is just a trace by me, and I did this as a first stab at something that I thought Jill brought up really pointedly a couple meetings ago, which is, the official map is like a bunch of spaghetti. I mean, we all actually, everybody in this meeting plus a few other people understand it pretty well. And then as a public outreach or information tool, it's, pretty tough to communicate. And so I just started with a trace of the town and wanted to start the idea of something that's more graphical, that communicates really general principles that I think I'm seeing emerge from the official map process. And I chose on this sketch to just really talk about biking. Although I took some notes about pedestrian connections as well. I'm not really talking much about new streets here, except in reference to a few that I think might have enhanced bike facilities. So the general principles I started with was that there ought to be an off-road connection that is bikeable, that links the growth center to the village to Catamount. Really, really basic idea. But, in talking with people about the Taft Corners project and about Williston planning in general, one of the things that I think is a really unique situation that's available in Williston is that by bike, you can connect people living in the growth center to this gigantic piece of conserved land that has all these recreation opportunities. And by the way, along that same route are your 2 public schools and the civic center of town in the village with all of its historic resources to enjoy and experience. So one principle on this map is there ought to be an off-road connection between the growth center and those other couple things. And that's my black lines on this map. The other is that there ought to be bike lanes that connect Williston to its adjacent towns, Richmond and South Burlington, and that connect the growth center and the village and the RZD to the conservation areas that are available to the south and the recreational opportunities at Lake Iroquois. So I've drawn a really ambitious version of the complex of public lands that exist in the southern half of Williston there. They're not quite that connected, but it's actually pretty close. But, you know, Brownell Mountain to Sucker Brook to Mud Pond, and that you would be able to use a bike lane along 2A to get at least to the trailhead at Sucker Brook, and a bike lane on Oak Hill to get all the way at least down to Lake Iroquois in this case, just the way I drew it. And similarly, that there would be bike lanes along all of Route 2 and along Mountain View to Governor Chittenden so that you could get out to Catamount there. And then there's a black line going north to Essex because we actually, you know, have an existing off-road facility all the way up there. It's just poorly connected to the growth center right now. So I've drawn that line down through Essex Alliance Church as well as an off-road connection parallel to 2A. And then there's a growth center detail map down the bottom of this where I tried to look a little closer at what we think is going to happen in the growth center. And, you know, one of the comments I got from a member of the public about the form-based code work in progress is they saw either a rendering of Trader Lane or Wright Avenue, I'm not sure which, but both of those visualizations show a wide sidewalk, a tree section, street parking, and then a narrow street with cyclists mixing with traffic and with a symbol painted on the road called a sharrow, which is the bike with the two arrowheads in front of it, indicating that bikes would mix with vehicle traffic. Among the bike advocacy world, the sharrow is seen as sort of a mulligan. It's aspirational. You know, if you see the sharrows on Pine Street and then ask yourself, you know, would I feel comfortable biking with my child with that symbol on the road? Would that make me feel like I could go there? Probably not. I know I wouldn't. And so they said, well, where are the streets with the cycle tracks? You know, where are the streets with separated facilities or enhanced facilities? And I said, well, we haven't really decided that yet. Don't worry. You know, there's a cycle track section in the vision plan. And I went back and found it. But I think what hasn't been talked about, especially in the growth center yet, is which of the public streets should be targeted for off-road cycle routes. I think there should be some. I think there should be some that connect each quadrant to its neighbor quadrants and to the facilities that would run along Route 2 headed out towards the village and 2A headed towards Essex Alliance. And that's kind of as far as I got. So, you know, I drew in the proposed track of Trader Lane, Helena to Seymour as an idea. I also drew in Zephyr Road to Paul Street to Blair Park to Harvest as the idea that you would add an off-road path connection there. Just my own ideas after I took some notes about what I thought made sense. And then, you know, to add into this map a list of sort of wish listy stuff, new streets in the growth center and in the residential zoning district and in the village should generally have sidewalks on both sides. That's a development standard already, but that there would be really no new streets developed in the village RZD or Taft Corners that didn't have sidewalks. That would just happen. And for the most part that has. Finney Crossing, Northridge, I think, has a sidewalk on one side of the street for part of it, just to fit the access in the right of way down into Southridge. But you know, that those things just happen and that they're all interconnected. So this is still, I think, about 3 times more complicated of a map than I think what Jill was really talking about. You know, I almost envision it as a circle with a swooshing arrow headed off towards the village in Catamount, where the circle is being able to circulate in the growth center. The swoosh goes to Catamount, and then these maybe finer lines go down, you know, north and south or something. But I didn't want to get too conceptual just yet. I just wanted to share the responsiveness to Jill's comment and the idea that I do think it's really important to communicate a really general vision of what this part of the official map is, I think, trying to achieve.
I really like it. It helped me think about it.
It's a
Um,
layer, it's an abstraction.
I think it's great because I think, you know, one of the nicest things about it is that I love the Growth Center Village Catamount connection, because those are like three major assets in our town that are not really that far apart, and they each provide something different, and so to have them connected would be just so fantastic. And you know, I love this, and I really like the you know, the connections north and south too. I mean, you know, Shayla was saying like that, yes, of course there are cyclists on Oak Hill because it's one of the only roads that crosses the highway. And so, you know, anybody from the northern side of Williston or Essex or, you know, other places farther away are going to cross the highway. They're not going to go to 2A. They're going to go to Oak Hill or maybe down to Kenyon. But, you know, that is the route. And so unless we have additional crossings of the highway, which is, you know, obviously not on this map with good reason, but, you know, then we're stuck with Oak Hill, and we have to, I totally agree. We have to make that, you know, have a lot better accommodations. As you know, I've been a big voice for that for 11 years or whatever. But especially the east-west connections, I really love that. I really like the idea of, you know, I live in the village. I would love to be able to, you know, get to the Growth Center more easily. And, you know, obviously I do bike commute to UVM, but like just to go to the Growth Center, I don't bring my bike because it's like, it's so much traffic and it's a hassle. But I think linking those three wonderful assets and sort of strength areas of the town, I think is a great idea.
I would agree. I think Brunel south of the interstate, we could develop too. I go that way over to Shelbourne a lot, and it would just open up commerce on a bicycle, going to the farmers markets that are out that way. I go over to Horsfield Nursery all the time, so it's a way to get down south and then come back.
Are you talking from Marshall Avenue south on Brownell and then west on Van Sicklen?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, or even to go to Shelburne, you know, you go Brownell down to 116, and then you can scoot across Pond Road. Some of my recreational riding happens down there. Brownell's really nice on a Saturday morning when it's not too busy, but it can be pretty narrow, and it can be really busy, you know, AM, PM peak working days. And
when those quarry trucks go by, that can get a little hairy too.
Yeah,
but
so
if we
you know,
have dedicated parking lanes along L, 2A, and Oak Hill, anywhere where we could have a nice trail to ride a bike down over time, over the next 50 years, it would be great for opening up the south part of town for exploration.
Yeah, and you're pointing out that Oak Hill, 2A, and Brownell are the three ways to get across the interstate within the town. Other roads like Old Stage Road used to continue to Tower Road, used to continue on up to Old Creamery. And similarly, there was a road at the, who's his name's farm, east of town. South Road used to go straight up to Route 2.
Johnson.
through
Farm.
the Johnson Farm, yeah. I wondered about the treatment of North Williston Road, similar to Oak Hill on this, just as another, just another way across the Winooski River. It's not one that I'm as familiar with. I've been on it. I think though, I'll make some add-ons to this. This was just a piece of tracing paper and some markers. It's actually a really great thing when the server goes down for a day, because you find other stuff to do that's not on the computer. They were redoing the power poles in the village last week.
Yeah.
So this was the day our server went down. I said, let's be old school. But I think the other thing is just if we could sink a little bit of resources into finding someone who can draw nicely. I like the idea of a much more conceptual map as a cover piece, or a series of these, one which is about this, one which might be more about the street network, and the vision for it's kind of like the character areas concept within the growth center, that the way your streets, paths, and trails all connect is unique between the village, the RZD, and the growth center, and the ARZD. I thought about expanding this a little bit by drawing a primitive path through the Brownell Suckerbrook Mud Pond complex, with the idea that there's this, kind of extended walking path opportunity down there that we actually had somebody, I just want to mention this idea of connecting Suckerbrook to the growth center. Last year, it was the week that VYCC was working at Suckerbrook, and so they had closed the trailhead. And we got a phone call from this guy who was a flight attendant staying at a hotel on Hurricane Lane. And he says, what the heck? I just walked down to this Suckerbrook trailhead and it's closed. What gives? I wanted to go for a hike on my day off where I'm stuck at this hotel on Hurricane Lane. And it was like the one day. And they would have let him walk past them. It was just, we didn't want a ton of people out there. But just as an illustration of the way that the demand for even those primitive trails can expand out beyond people who live in town to people who are in the growth center. So
Yeah,
this is just,
Matt, I do like that idea, because I think it helps take people up a few levels out of the, like, why do you want to build this trail behind my house or this road behind my house? Like, what gives, and gives them a sense of, we're not doing this explicitly to, frustrate you, or that this is part of this bigger vision, and here's
Right.
what it is, and here's why.
I think it's easier to build consensus around the general idea of you ought to be able to bike from A to B, or you ought to be able to walk from B to C, than it is, I want a piece of your land on which to build a public path that random people will be walking on, visible from your backyard, which is where these conversations end up, often going. So, and it's like, you need to do that in order to get this, right?
Matt,
Yeah.
I was wondering if you could add Governor Chittenden Road a little more, and because like we'll often, like, instead of riding on Route 2 when we're coming back from, say, Richmond,
Go up
we go up, Governor Chittenden, and it's so pretty. And
Yeah.
there is town, is it an easement that through Pine Ridge? Or former Pine Ridge?
Let's not
In a
talk about
sore
that.
spot?
There's a big
We're not
white
talking-
elephant out there.
Oh, sorry.
Well, and on the official map, there is a trail shown there now that was moved to match what people understood about what was possible. But it wasn't a bike trail, it was a primitive trail, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, but that's also, you're right about Governor Chittenden, Megan, and that's also the alignment for the Cross Vermont Trail.
Right.
So it makes some sense to just show that as, it's kind of like how Mountain View or Mountain View and Route 2 come together eventually as industrial and so there's like this sort of divergence and then convergence east to west in the town
Yeah.
between the two routes. So I like that.
Yeah.
But what's interesting to me is there are also wildlife corridors that sort of follow a similar idea. that, that they're pretty well mapped out on other maps, so we don't need to do a conceptual map, but the connection of Sucker Brook and Brownell Mountain to Mud Pond made me think of that.
Yeah,
Okay.
I like the idea of North Williston and then the state highway right away that goes up to the Winooski. And then there's, I believe, a railroad to the northern edge that could become a rail trail in 50 years, maybe.
We just really need to take over that IBM bridge.
Well, I have some friends who are ex-employees who are retired, and I see that IBM, I think, is one of the largest tax-paying entities in the town, or the
Yeah.
foundry is. And so there's a lot of us retired IBMers who could get together, and we own a bank or several.
Yeah, I don't know what Global Foundries is thinking these days about that, but having that bridge is, yeah, I used to use it on my bike.
It's actually a fair question. I'll throw it out there and talking to the town manager about whether the town should map the IBM bridge as a desired road connection. The desire for that
Yes.
bridge to be a public asset has been expressed to both IBM and the Global Foundries team. There's some security issues related to what part of the global operation is on the Essex side, really kind of close to the road. But as a long range plan, saying, you know, the town would like this to become public if it became available, the town would
Yes.
be interested. And, you know, I mean, we kind of look at that industrial East District and the IBM campus as a done deal. But it's a big chunk of industrial land, which means it could be nothing for a long, long time. And then all of a sudden somebody could have an interest in it and want to do redevelopment under a specific plan or a zoning amendment or something where really all those options come back on the table, and the town's in a position to say, well, maybe we could adjust our zoning if you could give us this bridge. I mean, that's,
Yep.
you know, that sort of stuff happens all the time in other places.
We should do it.
Definitely. I really like that idea. I've wanted that bridge for a long time.
And it's a safer one to bike across than
Oh my gosh, yeah.
than North
I
Williston.
do use it quite a lot on my bike. I don't know if that's illegal, but
Only,
I probably
only if
shouldn't.
they,
you can delete that part of the recording.
we'll just we'll put some static over that.
Yeah.
Sorry, Megan, I couldn't hear what you said there. I think only if they trespass you from the property is it
I see.
really problematic. But yeah, I mean, you know, there's only so many ways over the Winooski. The IBM bridge was looked at as part of the CERC alternatives, ultimately not, you know, that was that whole, I don't know if you remember, Megan, the CERC
Yeah.
AB alternative conversation. And you didn't get a lot of vehicular help unless you connected it A and B together all the way to the interstate, but as a, you know, a bike ped enhancement. And, you know, my belief too, that as people find out what's possible on e-bikes, they're certainly going to want to ride everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually that's a really good point, because that, you know, that makes some of these routes a little more feasible for people, like even going from
Oh,
the growth
yeah.
center to the village. Like, I know that hill is intimidating for a lot of people. And, or even, you know, things like French Hill, coming back up French Hill that's brutal. And I mean, it's fun to go down, but, and then of course, like obviously going from Oak Hill Road, continuing down to CVU, you know, again, great descent, kind of a brutal climb. So, but with e-bikes, like a lot of that is almost like literally flattening our topography, and opening up alternatives for people that have been, you know, really not feasible.
Yeah.
I would, you know, given how many high school students drive, including my own, on Oak Hill to school. Like, I mean, it would be pretty nice to have really great bike access along that whole road. So e-bikes, I could totally see that. Maybe not in the
Yeah,
winter, but
Probably not in the winter, although Paul Connor, the city planner in South Burlington, he lives down by the lake in Burlington. So the bike share bikes have been deployed in Burlington now. And so I was in a meeting with Paul last week and he said, yep, I've commuted to work on the bike share bikes 3 days this week in my work clothes. So, straight up, Maple Street or Main Street or up and over campus at UVM and down to South Burlington City Hall and back again at the end of the day. $99 a year, 30 free minutes a day, 37 cents a minute after that. And you've got an e-bike or I think $1 to unlock and 37 cents a minute without a subscription. That's my plug for the e-bike system. But
yeah. Well, you
absolutely
can't
flat
get them
sale.
right now anyway, so they're so backlogged, they're so back ordered. So great to borrow one.
Yeah, and try something out. I got out on the Burlington bike path this weekend, and I would say it was about 10 to 20% privately owned e-bikes on the bike path, which was kind of interesting.
Mhm.
The bike share e-bikes have GPS in them and are actually speed limited on the bike path. The assist only works up to 10 miles an hour on the bike path, which is kind of neat. And if you take a bike share bike on Church Street, it shuts off the motor
Huh.
because you're not supposed to ride bikes on Church Street. So it's kind of amazing what you can do with the technology.
That's awesome. So then you give it like the super boost power if you're going up the CVU hill.
It's really enhancement zone.
Yeah.
Shayla's asking about getting the FBC presentation in PDF. I have it as a PDF. I will send that around or upload it to the website. We got that last week. They had some slides that were multi-stage. They had to turn into pages, but I've got that for you guys.
And our upcoming meetings, we have one other thing coming up, which is reorganization. I think, isn't July 1 our
Yeah.
reorganization date?
Yes.
So people who would like to serve in an officer position, think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Any parting shots before we adjourn on time? It is supposed to be till 9. I was spacing out.
Matt, how do I get this bike map? I have a friend who's a graphic artist, and I'd like to put it in front of her and see what she could do.
I printed it from there.
It's a giant PDF file, Ron. That's what the link takes you to. Or so you could just send them to that web page and say, what do you think of this? Could you do something fun with this? Or I can also just email it to you as a big attachment.
Yeah, if you could do that.
And on my computer, I just opened the PDF and said print, and it printed just fine.
All right.
Chapin.
Good. Yes,
All right. I have one more thing. I just want
go for it.
to say, funny thing about Zoom, I am very pregnant and I'm going to have a baby in the middle of July.
Wow.
Wow.
Oh, congratulations,
So-
Shayla. That's so
Congratulations.
exciting. Yeah, Zoom. Wow.
Yeah, I know. Wild. So probably we'll be here all next month, but just so folks know, I may be out for a couple meetings at some point in the next couple months.
Well, you can talk to
And that
Kate
is-
about our maternity leave
Yeah.
policy.
Yeah, right. That is also why, folks, I have been occasionally off video when I have been on. I've been reclined instead of sitting up or standing. Thanks for bearing with me. I'm very glad it has been on Zoom because there's part of my pregnancy I would not have been able to come otherwise.
I had no idea. And I think one of the nice things about Zoom is that you can participate with an infant without having to leave the home.
Yeah.
et cetera, et cetera. And you mute yourself if if you need to, and so forth. The other, the other thing we haven't talked about this, but a couple of organizations I'm with are working on how to go back to in-person meetings, and they talk about hybrid models with what's called an OWL, which is a camera that will point itself at wherever the voice is speaking. So that people can be in the room or on Zoom, and it means you need a couple of screens, so that one for whatever you're presenting and one for seeing who's on Zoom. So the people in the room can see who's on Zoom just the way the people on Zoom can see who's in the room. It takes a little bit of setup, but I think we may want to let the select board go first on that, and then follow their experience. Is that your thought about it, Matt?
We're on it. So two things are happening. One is Town Meeting TV Channel 17 is piloting a hybrid in-person technology in the main town hall meeting room, the one the select board meets in. That is, of course, the night you're double booked against the select board. I think I've talked Eric into buying us a OWL as well, so that our small conference room will be set up for that in person. And what we can do is we can put the online attendees on the projector. That'll be your penalty for attending online, is you'll be larger than life. But we can sit around the table and have online participants on the projector, and then we can plug in an auxiliary monitor if we're doing a screen share, or one of the staff can be in there with the laptop attending via Zoom. We'll figure it out. But we are hoping to be ready for hybrid in person at whatever point the state rescinds the ability to be completely online, which we expect. I think there's nothing in the legislature that would extend the ability for fully online meetings. So, we're kind of in a holding pattern of, we know at some point we're going to have an in-person option. And I think also things with COVID are just changing so quickly that people are going to want to be in person. But we don't want to lose all of the participation and flexibility we've gotten out of the ability to be online, and we've got all that sweet COVID grant money to spend. So we're ready to go shop for meeting owls and microphones and fun stuff like that.
Especially the public participation.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I totally agree. Like,
and
we need Peggy to still be able to come.
Yeah. Well, people who can't or don't want to drive at night, people who need childcare, people who don't want to sit through 3 hours for the 20 minutes of the thing that they're interested in, or they can sit there and wash dishes, or do something else until their thing comes on. It's huge for accessibility.
I think we've demonstrated a huge value, and I'm glad that we are thinking about continuing it when we go back to in-person. And an additional one is that when you have a cold and you wonder, oh, should I go to that meeting, but you don't want to miss it, go to it on Zoom and not be worried. And I think now that everybody over 16 can get vaccinated, if we wait for the amount of time for them to have 2 shots plus 2 weeks, pardon?
Over 12.
Everybody over 12.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
But I think it would be inappropriate to move to it until everybody who would want to come to a meeting can make the choice by their choice, not by that there's no choice.
Yeah. I think we've got some time, and I think we're going to be ahead of it enough with the tech that we need to make it work. So stay tuned, and we'll be doing that. I mean, we're still in our office. We're back in person, but we're not open to the public yet. That's not a conversation that's been completed yet. We're still, taking stuff through the side door, meeting with people in the courtyard, all that good stuff. And there's no hard set date yet for how we're going to handle that. So still a little bit early, but we're planning over the summer. There's going to be a transition for all this.
Yeah. I was guessing July.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other wonderful announcements?
We are getting going on a contract for the village project. So just in case you weren't, sick of planning for parts of Williston. We've got a contractor on board to help us with that project, and we're looking at a work plan that runs summer, fall, winter, but hopefully sort of slotted in and around the coding effort that'll come out of form-based code. I think it'll be actually kind of complementary. So that's coming. Melinda was appointed today as deputy zoning administrator, and all of the fun that comes with that, which means someone else can sign a permit when I'm out.
I'm
and
sorry, Melinda.
share the pain. So congratulations on that. And send your good thoughts to Melinda and Emily on May 25th when they take the AICP exam, which they're both going to just crush. I see
You'll
them
ace it.
studying. They're studying harder than I did, and I passed. So
That's all great. Good luck, and thank you too, Melinda. The tool you made for giving comments on the official map is just out of this world. So thank you.
Welcome.
Very cool.
all right.
Okay, let's adjourn at 9:04.
Perfect.
Take care. It's good to see you all.
Great. Thanks,
Hi, everybody.
Good
Bye,
night.
everybody.
Bye.
Take care, Shayla.
Right.